Wake up and welcome back to Talk Black and Give Back, the podcast where we discuss topics relevant to the Black community, not just to vent, but to commit to action in building sustainable solutions that empower our whole community. Today, I want you to really focus on my message because some of you will believe that we're talking politics. We're not. We're talking people. We're talking about the very foundation of what it means to be an American and what it takes to keep building on the legacy our ancestors fought and died for: the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans. We've all seen the news cycles, the divisive rhetoric, and this language around equity that ironically has become a buzzword many leaders seem to frown upon. But here's the hard truth. The tone of America is always taken from the top down. We are going to take a minute to focus on the foundation of division and tearing down the house. When we're building a house, you start with a foundation. You make it solid so that you can build and build and build across generations. But what happens when the very policies and rhetoric set at the highest levels start to introduce cracks into that foundation? It seems as if we have been intentionally forced into these unique, often contradictory boxes that were never meant to be checked. Black, brown, white, left, right, Christian, Muslim, non-religious. We're overemphasizing our differences, which are distracting us from things that took generations to build. There's a saying in the Bible, and I'm a Christian, as some of you may know, but it's in the Bible and it's a universal principle of engineering as well. So for those of you who don't believe, it's also a universal principle, okay? If a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And that is found in the Bible, Mark 3:25. Now, why should we consider our country any greater or less than this fundamental truth? When leaders constantly focus on highlighting division and tearing down historical achievements, it chips away at the collective national identity of us all. I'm not here to name names or discuss party platforms, but to simply state that when you set policies and engage in rhetoric that dismantle the goodwill, knowledge, and pursuit of a better legacy by any group, Black, Mexican, Latin, or otherwise, you are actively weakening the foundation, the American foundation. The proof is in the palpable hate, anger, and division that we see every single day that you turn on the news or even look at social media platforms and all the hate that goes back and forth between conversations. Now, let's look at the language we use to discern whether we're building or tearing down. The term equity language has become a sign of something to be avoided in some leadership circles. And why? Because it forces a conversation about the historical and systematic imbalance. But if the truth fears no proof, then we must be able to discuss real history and real imbalances without fear of political backlash. The core fight our ancestors engaged in, not just for legal equality, but for the right to build, the right to participate fully in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When we allow an administration to question, dilute, or tear down the legacy of Black and Brown people throughout America, it's an attack on the foundational promise of this country itself. This brings us to the core mission of Talk Black and Give Back. We believe in building community from the bottom up. We see a problem when things get too centralized, too far removed from the people they're meant to serve. So I know some of you might know in construction, there's a phrase: if you get too top heavy, you'll eventually tip over or tip yourself over. So that's what happens when you try to build a strong community from the top down. All of the weight, and all of the decisions are held by the few up high, but the foundation below isn't solid. When the wind blows, the tower of policy and power doesn't stand a chance. Some of y'all will have to replay that part later on. Okay. But we don't want to be tipping over as we're building our foundation. So now that we talked about the problem, let's focus on a sustainable solution and collective power. The solution isn't about blaming any one group. It's about shifting our focus from what separates us to what unites us. The desire to be better today than we were tomorrow. The power of any nation, and certainly any community, is not in the height of its tower, but the strength of its base. We, as Black consumers, have incredible economic power. Recent data confirms that Black consumers' spending power in the United States is projected to be well over $1.9 trillion. Now, that's an unbelievable leverage for change. Therefore, our solution at Talk Black and Give Back, our solutions are to focus on shifting the dialogue and the dollars to put our money solely into our communities. So, our suggestion is to invest intentionally in Black-owned businesses, support, create and use platforms like our very own Black-owned Connect, which is a directory, and it can be found when you visit talkblackgiveback.org. Okay, and then we have an upcoming Black-owned Connect marketplace, and they're going to act as hubs for economic recirculation of our dollars into our communities. Okay, and then we need to focus on focus on local policies and community initiatives that empower people at the ground level, where true lasting change is actually built, guys. If you're unfamiliar with some of the local empowerment organizations, check into Impact Alamance or ARCAP, Community Action Agency Incorporated in Alamance County. And you can also check Down Home NC, which is one of my favorites. They all are champions for reform, and they're trying to build a better tomorrow for us all. In conclusion to this podcast, I want to discuss the united state of man. Let's stop and remember a simple premise of fairness, a lesson we learned in childhood, perfectly illustrated by the old folks' tale. That book, I don't know if many of you probably read it or read it to your children, The Little Red Hen. You know the story, the hen asked, who will help me plant this grain? Who will help me grind this flour? Who will help me bake this bread? And the pig, the cat, and the dog all say no. But when the delicious fresh bread is finally ready, the hen asks, who will help me eat this bread? And they all shout, I will. Well, the lesson of this story is not about bread. It's about effort, contribution, and reward. The simple premise of fairness is this. If you work for it and you help build it, then you should be able to reap the benefits. It's that simple. The greatness of America is not something that just happened. It was planted, it was worked, it was built by every single person who has contributed. That's Black America, Latin America, Asian Americans, and every American who has put in the effort. The benefit of this nation should go to those who helped make the bread, not just those who showed up at the table asking for a slice. The greatness of America is not exclusive. It is not an exception for any group. This is the sum, it is the sum of all Americans who have worked to build it. So our call to action today is to join hands. Let's move beyond the divisive rhetoric. Let's stop checking the boxes that elected officials have tried to put us into. Instead, let's focus on creating the united state of man, a mindset where we all work for unity and realize that our power is not in our division, but in our collective efforts. Don't wait for permission from the top. we're never going to get it. Let's build on our own foundation. Let's support our own builders, and let's ensure that the house we're building is one that will stand for generations to come. Join the conversation. Find a Black-owned business to support today, and let's realize our vision to build a stronger, more sustainable community from the bottom up. Let's all work together to make America truly great, not again, but for the first time. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next month. Thank you for listening again, as always. And until next we speak again, take good care of yourself and take better care of others.